It's going to be for another video where I look at the most popular flight sims and compare how realistic they are. But leaving that there for now, one of the most interesting things about flight sims, in my opinion, is practicing difficult and challenging approaches anywhere in the world. And while DCS, these airports are constricted to the areas of the map, in X-Plane we have the entire world, as well as Flight Sim 2020, but again, another video. So we're going to look at following the procedures as best and as accurately we can from the home sim. In no particular order, my favourite 6 are Paro, where the Mount Everest lot go. We've got Innsbruck in the Alps. We've got the river visual in Washington, DC. We've also got the expressway visual into LaGuardia in New York City. And then we've got Bogota, we've got Arnav there that goes around the mountains. And then last but not least is the one that this video is going to be about, which is Tivat, code Lima Yankee Tango Victor, which is the circling approach runway 32 into runway 14. And that's what we're going to look at today. It's a hell of a lot of fun. I really enjoy it. And so while this video isn't necessarily a full-on tutorial, it is certainly a half-hearted attempt at one, as well as having some fun. So without further ado, let's jump in. Coming into LYTV, very interesting approach. Here is a very simplified star. You won't often see them as simple as this. But essentially, our final point on the routing will be pin UK, and at that point we'll enter the star. And we see here it'll spit us out at a point known as TV301. That takes us into the approach here at TV301, and we'll see we'll be crossing over an NDB here at Tivat, at which point we'll turn onto a track, not a heading but a track of 302, and then as we are category Delta at this point here, we will be heading 336, not 346 there for the smaller lighter aircraft. We'll be going 336 until we are 4 miles away from TIV, which is the localizer here, and at that point we'll be entering a right hand turn into FAL, which is estimated to be around 3 nautical miles. And so with that done, let's get on with our approach and we'll set things up from there. So from pin UK we see we've got some speed restrictions here of 250. Might as well get that dialed in just until there we see pin UK about 60 miles away. So what we'll probably do is trade some height for speed until that point. And so let's set this up into the computer or the McDo. And so we see here we've got the pin UK 1 Delta, which is going to lead us into the approach, which is called the NDB Yankee 14. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's clear out that message. And on the arrival, so there's the NDB Yankee 14, and that is via the pin UK. We've got 3 Alpha and 1 Delta. Let's just check, and it's the 1 Delta that we want. So the pin U 1D, no via, no trans, in you go. And that's now set up. Let's switch over into managed mode. So we'll push these in. And how high or low rather do we want to be? And it looks like 6,000 feet, at least for now. So let's dial 6,000 in, and then the autopilot can start trading its height and speed and work it all out for us. So the next thing that I want to do is put this in. So we see we've got an MSA with the airport, 8,400 feet. And this is, unless stated, always going to be 25 miles. And in this case, the airport, LYTV. So let's drop that in. So we'll come over here onto the fixed page. We're going to put the airport in, which is LYTV. And let's pop in that radius then of 25. Okay. Return. And now we'll see this little blue dotted line. That's that 25-mile radius. We know if we're anywhere in there, we need to be above 8,400 feet and we will be clear of all obstacles. It's sort of a IMC last resort kind of a thing. And here we are descending. Let's get the signs on. And so we got turning lights on. Now we're in descent. Might as well put the wing lights on. So let's continue with the brief. So we know that we're going to come through here. We need to be at 6,000 until this point here, Lasty, along this pin U1 Delta. And then after that, we've got some speed restrictions, 220. And then we want to be 2,600 feet at 200 knots. So what I'm going to do in the plan mode is just check that those things are in. Let's bring the range down and look for the first restriction. Lasty here. We see there's 250 knots. That's fine. And we need to be 6,000 feet or above. Well, that's probably met by previous, and we see those restrictions are there. So the Ghost Soot is the one after that. There we see it's 220. That's in. And then TV301, 200 knots, 2,600. It's probably a minimum. There's TV301. There's 200 knots. And yeah, 2,600 or above. I want to change that to be at 2,600 feet. So I'm going to change that like that. Okay. So instead of 2,600 and above, I want to be at 2,600. And the reason is... keep pressing the wrong thing. After that, which is this point here, we're going to be doing this whole thing. So this, let's see, are we programmed in? And I'm going to guess probably not. So there's Lasty, there's TV301, which is here, and then we've got Taz, last but not least, Taz. That's this point here. So you see the approach actually ends there, the as per this procedure ends there. So in other words, if we don't take over from the autopilot at this point, it's just going to put us round here on this missed approach. But we want to fly it from that point, but I want to set up a couple of marks just as visual reference. So we see here the first point is going to be on from Taz 302, and we want to be 3.9 miles from TIV. And then we've got this other point here, which is 4 miles from TIV. So I think what would be really helpful is to mark out TIV and put a 4-mile ring around it, and then these 2 points are basically going to be on the edge of that ring. So let's go ahead and do that now. So let's get the fix. TIV. Next page. TIV. Okay. And we want a 4-mile radius. And if we look, we can add a couple of points in. And I'm not actually sure we need any there. We just want to be 336. So I'm going to write these down, make a mental note. We've got 302, because we're going to have to do this manually, remember. So after Taz... whoops, after Taz... it's going to be 302. And then it's going to be from this point here, which is going to be where that circle is. It's going to be then 336. And these are all going to be tracked, so we're going to switch over to the bird. Let's discuss weather. We will just program that in while we're descending. Let's return and have a look at that little circle now that we just discussed. So coming over to TV, then Taz. So at this point, it's that 302 heading, so we'll be going approximately this direction until we come across to that circle. Then we turn right onto a heading of 336 until we meet the other side of the circle, and then it's the last right-hand turn. It's estimating that's going to be around 3 miles, so we want to be at about 1,000 feet. In fact, Let's have a look at runway height. What are we doing? We want to be about 1,000 feet. Yeah, because runway height is 20 feet. So that will fit into that 3-to-1 profile. Nice. Okay, so weather. So let's come over to the init performance page, sorry. Descent approach. So I customized the weather because currently it's not suitable for the approach that we are dealing with. And so I just made it up, and we're going to be on a altimeter 3022. Temperature's going to be 11 degrees, and the winds, which make it suitable for this turnaround, is going to be 180 at 10. Let's have a look at the minimum height for Class D aircraft category D. We're going to be 1,660. So that's going to be our MDA. We could also put the other height in of 1,640, but I'm just going to go with this 1,660. Because of all the terrain and hills and everything, it's going to throw it off otherwise. So let's put 1,660 in there. Flaps full, given an approach speed of 147. Back over to the arc. Let's go ahead and put the smoking signs on, and as we're about to fall through 10,000 feet, what's the speed looking like? We're still high. Don't want to put the lights out until we're below these eyebrows here of 280. What I could do is put a marker on at TAS just to help remind me now that I've got a little bit of time left. So if I come over to the fix, let's go to the next page. TAZ, and it's the one that's 23 miles away clearly. And if we look here, coming out from TAS on a track of 302, so let's pop that into the radial. And now if we look, we see that little line, and we see that goes right up to the edge of that circle, and it's at that point we want to turn right onto that heading of 336. If we look here, there's that. So this is that point where that line meets the circle, is this point. We then go 336, which is going to be the other side of that circle, and then right turn. And it's at that point we want to be around about 1,000 feet. Let's have a look at the speeds now. We want to be 250, so we're already coming in a little hot, so I'm going to pop the air brakes out just to try and comply with this restriction here. Looks like we're going to bust it slightly. Nice sunset. Don't want to be doing this procedure at night. It's probably not authorized at night. Let's have a little look. Does it say? Procedure not usable at night. There we go. So looks like we're still looks like the autopilot is making use of the air brakes, and instead of trying to slow down, it's actually dumping the height first, so we're probably coming in a little hot. I would have started the descent a bit earlier for myself. As you saw, we already had that decel message when we started the video. It was just the most suitable time. So there's 6,000 feet. Let's close the air brake off. And I'm actually going to arm the spoilers. Why not? No, we best do that later. Alright, so there's Lasty. 6,000 feet, 250 knots. So we're where we should be. I'm going to go ahead and come local now and dial in 3022. And let's pull that just to get into the correct height, as the local pressure was about, what, 300 feet off. And I think we can carry on rolling that descent back. Let's come into the hundreds and dial it back to 3.6. Let's go into managed mode, so the autopilot's going to comply with the restrictions that we put into the McDo until TV301, and that is 2,600. So let's have that one in there and ready. Let's get the other things done. We're nice and slow now. Landing lights, nose light remain until we're cleared to land. We've got all the signs on. I think now's a good time to go flaps 1. And keeping an eye on Taz, we do need to kick the autopilot out by that time. And shortly before, we'll turn the bird on and we'll get the heading in for 302, or the track rather, because there is a bit of wind there, which is precisely why the difference between heading and track is so important today. I'm aware that you probably know this, but there might be some people that don't. Here's a little diagram that I've made briefly outlining the difference between heading and track. We can see here that if we're heading straight to the north, but the wind is blowing us from the west towards the east, our track will end up being a difference somewhere between the two. Looks like we're busting through the restrictions once again, so let's get the speed brakes out once more. And I'm just going to say to myself, I want to be geared down flaps 2 by the point of Taz, geared down flaps 3 by this time. And on the final turn at this point here, I'm going to go flaps full. So that's the plan for me. All things going well. And here, if we look, if it's a missed approach, any time before here, clearly it's left. After that, I'm going to assume it's initial climbing, turn towards the runway, then proceed to Taz NDB. So if it's missed at any time, we turn towards the runway and then onto here, climbing towards what? 6,000. Okay, that's clear. So let's fold the spoilers away, gear down, flaps 2. So I'm going to come onto the bird at this point. Let's pull the head in. Let's get ourselves down to 2,600. Speed can remain managed. Let's get the performance page on my side. Flight plan your side. That's good. So here's we're coming up to Taz. We're going to be ready to put 302 in on the track. Let's zoom in so we can see this precise as possible, and that'll do for me. So let's turn 302, and this should follow this line, the radial from Taz, fairly accurately. There's 2.6. We got any height? 2,500. Looks like we can continue on a 3.2 degree from Taz NDB. So let's wind that up to 6,000 and continue on about. It's saying 3.2, so let's try it. All that I know is that when we touch this circle and turn right, I want to be 1,000 feet ish at the other end. Let's check the cabins ready, arm the spoilers, flaps to go. Let's go flaps 3. Airbus struggling to slow down a bit.
Terrain.
Check.
Terrain.
We've got visual, no factor.
Terrain. Terrain.
100 above.
Terrain. 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 terrain, terrain,
Keeping an eye here, we're
Terrain,
about to touch the
terrain.
edge of this circle,
terrain, terrain,
and I'm going to ease that descent
Terrain,
off
terrain.
now.
terrain, terrain.
So I'd say we're touching it around now, so let's right turn on the
terrain.
track here to 3, 3.
Terrain, 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 terrain.
Let's clear that out. 336. So having touched this side where that line touches the circle, we're now cutting across here. In other words, if we look here, we're at this point here, we're now cutting across here. And if you actually look on the aircraft, looks like we turned right ever so slightly early.
1,000.
We've passed through minimums, we can see in the orange, so we are continuing. So let's cut that descent out now. And we're on this 1,000 foot here. Don't want to go flaps full until we initiate that final descent. Looks like your side's got the terrain on nice. We've got the weather. Let's zoom in here as well. And there's the runway to our right. And we are on what is effectively the downwind leg. So I'm going to come left a tad because, again, we saw we were ever so slightly low, but I think at this point it would be more than fine for a pilot to do that, having seen he's crossed over the obstacle here, just to give himself a little more room as we come to the edge of this circle. And we're getting ready now for the 3 degree. Actually, let's push that and let's wind that down. So there's the end, so right hand
Caution
turn.
terrain. Caution terrain.
And we're now going to proceed direct towards the runway. Runway 14. Let's ease that descent off a bit, keep the turn going. All the way round to this point here. I'm going to ease the descent off even more. Let's go flaps full. Keep the turn going. As soon as I see the runway, which is now going to disconnect the autopilot.
500.
We're a little low, so let's
Approaching 1-4.
let's reduce that vertical speed to almost nothing. Slightly overshooting the center line. Let's keep that descent going. Just very slightly until we catch up with the Pappies. Slight crosswind from the right. There we go, we've got one in. Let's slowly reintroduce that descent. And there we go.
300.
Gonna assume we're clear to land. Nose light comes on. Watch that descent rate. I'd get rid of the flight directors at this point.
150, 40,
Flare.
30, 20.
I'm going to take the power.
Retard. 10, 5.
Reversers on. That radar is clearly at the front of the aircraft. No auto brake required. AKA I forgot. 60 knots, let's go idle reverse. Oh well, at least it won't have worn the brakes outright. Let's look at the positive side of it. Tutorial on landing and forgets the most important thing, to put the brakes on. Let's get rid of the flaps. The spoilers even come up. Oh, at least they did. At least the spoilers came up, so let's give it that. Let's close the reversers. Looks like we got to go to the end to do the turn anyway, so unless you could stop real quick to or exit at this point at the hotspot 1 there, you're to the end anyway. Certainly you might be able to turn around in a lighter aircraft, but A, I don't think this one could, and B, even if it could, it's probably forbidden for an aircraft above a certain weight to do a 180 on the runway itself. Actually, look at that. The runway is tipped at an angle. It says we're negative here. So with that, yeah, that's the end of the recording. It's certainly not the easiest airport to land at, but it is a lot of fun. It's a lot of procedure, and if you can get some extra terrain scenery for this area. Also, look at that. What a beautiful area, right? So if you get some nice scenery packages for the place, this is certainly one of my favorites. This, to me, rivals Innsbruck. And you might, yeah, the hills aren't as big. I get it. And the RNAV is not as many predefined waypoints, but it's a lot more hands-on because of it. So until next time, take care. Bye-bye.